Good morning, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Today, we're going to talk about Infor and Infor's strategy for the rental industry primarily. Although, as you can see from the slide, we are going to touch on some other areas of ERP, namely the field service and construction, of course. But the primary goal today is to talk to you about rental. So let's kick this off and get going. So first of all, there's that slide that all software vendors present to you. Everything we say to you, I guess, could be changed, right? That's what that says. So today's agenda, basically, who are we and who do we have as customers? The industry drivers, why are we here? What do we do? How we deliver value for you? Meeting your needs in a vertical, of course, your needs are very specific to your industry. And then looking ahead at what the future is all about. So that's what we're going to cover today. So let's move ahead again. So Infor themselves, Infor is the third largest ERP vendor in the world, 67,000 customers and growing. 14,000 of those are in the cloud, which makes a significant percentage, of course, still on-premise, if you like. But that is changing and changing rapidly as the cloud adoption comes upon the rest of the world. 3.3 billion in revenue, not the type of software vendor who's going to have any financial challenges, as you might expect. And then also, how many people in the Infor system in terms of partner relationships, and there's over 2,000 of those. Like many software vendors of this scale, at the smaller end of the market especially, Infor will go to market with a host of VARs or partners, as we call them. Infor has a rather unique release schedule. I think this is unique in the fact that we do 12 releases per year, one per month. And what does that promote? Well, it means you don't have to wait for the functionality, firstly. Literally, it's coming at you all the time. Secondly, you don't have to take that functionality if you don't want to, right? It's actually sent to you in a, let's call it a turned off or deactivated mode. So you don't get forced with those, but nevertheless, they are available every month and they get enhanced and improved. You don't go through that mini implementation. A lot of vendors in the past have released software updates maybe once a year, once every 18 months or so. And absorbing such dramatic change clearly brings with it dramatic requirements for you to test the system. And some companies might argue, that's disruptive. And Infor is trying to move away from that to create these mini releases 12 times a year, every month. Okay, who owns Infor? It's not a PLC. It's not a company that's controlled on the stock exchange. It has a private owner and in Koch. And those guys are pretty famous, the Koch brothers, $150 billion of revenue, rather. So they purchased Infor a few years ago and are reinvesting significant amounts of profit and turnover back into the product. And the key message from Koch is these people are a long-term partner. They see this relationship for 20 to 30 years. So great backer for the company and the product, the technology, and they're very interested in reinvesting back into Infor and its products. Companies up here, obviously, there's a lot of big names on here, Infor being the third largest ERP vendor in the world. There's a lot of impressive names across the top, of course. And then the product we'll talk more about, which you'll see is a tier 2 solution, small and medium enterprises. You see some of those at the bottom, not as big a names that are flashing across the top. And I would say those are big headlines, of course, but most of the people we deal with are in the tier 2, as we call it, and Infor stretch from tier 1 down to tier 2. There are 4 tiers in software, and Infor really don't play in tier 3 or tier 4. So it's the top 2 tiers that Infor will have software. So what are the industry drivers? What drives the problems or the solutions or those that succeed? Well, I think these are not really unusual for you guys. You already recognize them. Product innovation, okay? You have to be able to innovate your products, new product development, project management perhaps to manage all of that. And then personalization of the software as well as possible. So you don't, yes, you buy an out-of-the-box solution, but that's okay. The products that Infor have are completely personalizable, tailorable, configurable for your needs, your particular needs. Yes, you're in a vertical. Yes, that vertical has similarities and all of the plumbing, let's say, is there. But if you want to do something that's specific to you, then that's certainly possible in Infor software. We all face increasing supply chains and more challenging supply chains, especially with COVID, of course, and the reduction in the availability of materials and equipment. Then these supply chains are getting significantly more complex. The obvious one in the middle, everybody has to reduce complexity and reduce cost, of course. That's a given. Those who have the appetite for it are looking to maybe acquire new businesses or perhaps open up new branches, new legal entities, move across town, move across state, move across the country, move outside the country. So handling all of that is clearly important to any ERP system. You know, the concept of, multi-state and taxation, or maybe multi-currency and different tax rules in those countries. Everything's covered, as you might expect from a vendor like Infor. And then new technology, who's at the front? Okay, you don't want to be backing a horse that actually is going to be already losing the race coming in. And it's important that as you look at software vendors, that you're picking a vendor that is at the forefront of the technology and is at the leading edge, if you like. And that again is Infor. So these are obvious, I think. There's no shocks in that list, but nevertheless, just to reinforce them. Now, what has really come about, I think, in the last, decade perhaps, is software as a service. Okay, it's not a product anymore. It's not a piece of software that you buy, you own forever. Okay, that's the old model. You buy servers, you buy operating systems and databases and backup pieces of equipment. We all know the routine. And, you pay a maintenance fee for that to get the updates and have access to support. Well, that's changing and has changed quite dramatically. We saw in the first slide that a small percentage are in the cloud today of Infor's customers. And I wouldn't say small, that might be the wrong phrase. Less than half of Infor's customers are in the cloud today. But when you look at the new customers who bought software in 2022, then you're looking at over 80% of customers who purchased software in 2022 went to the cloud. And that's called software as a service. And as it suggests, as we look around the circle there, this is really about innovation. Let somebody else look after the infrastructure. Don't get bogged down with infrastructure. Let somebody else host it for you. And Infor is all about that. So they've partnered with Amazon Web Services. And what happens there is that is the biggest, that is the best. Those who know hosting companies, Amazon is the giant of the hosting companies out there, and they look after all the infrastructure. You don't need to worry about that, and neither does Infor, although Infor are clearly passionate about such a thing. They do leave that to AWS. And Infor really focuses on the software. That's the message here. And this model is not one of ownership of the software. It's one of a service. It's a subscription to the software. Clearly, all the data is yours. That really doesn't change. And the software will always be available to you with incredible backups and mirroring. And these are immediately available during disaster recovery, which is another problem you don't need to consider. So really, this is the direction of the software world. Probably, I'm guessing, in a couple of more years, it's almost likely that 99% of all software will be sold as a subscription that you see here. Okay, so what happens? What's the difference? Fundamental, two charts here about who owns what. And on the left, we see the traditional model of on-premise. And on the right, you're seeing the SaaS model, if you like. So, when we look down the left, ownership, payment structure, and so on, we'll look at each of these. And as you can see, the ownership, on-premise, you own the hardware, the software, the infrastructure, the maintenance, and the data. The problem is all yours, let's say. And in effect, with the SaaS model, the data is yours, right? That's really what is important to you guys, and the rest of the software you're subscribing to the service to use it. The payment structure, very friendly. There isn't really those big one-off capital purchases that you might have had in the past. This is more about a subscription, be it monthly, annually, and a contract for a length of time. So you might take, say, a 3-year contract with annual payments as one option, for example. The innovation side, you have to worry about that in the traditional model, right? Servers are upgrading, storage methods are upgrading, backup devices are upgrading. It's quite a headache and quite expensive, of course, and many of you perhaps employ significant teams to manage all of that for you. Well, again, all that goes away. AWS and Infor are worrying about all of those innovation issues and bring them to you without you even thinking about it. Security, I think that might be the most important on here, perhaps. And again, security, we rely on firewalls and other technology or third-party vendors to help us with our security. It's become so complex today, it's almost impossible for a small to medium-sized enterprise to really understand security and deliver it to the degrees that you need today. Again, we're with AWS. AWS employ 2,000 people whose job every day it is to worry about security. So could it be much better than that? I don't think so. Certainly none of us in the small to medium enterprise could match such capabilities. Then integration and implementation. Again, this has all been a challenge over the past. You have your ERP system. You may or may not need to integrate with other third-party solutions to bring the whole solution to you. And then implementation, again, the loading of the software, the upgrading of the software at a periodic basis, be it 12 monthly, 18 monthly. It's quite a toll and needs dedicated people where, again, as long as you're in the cloud, you're getting these monthly updates. And integration is basically part of a suite of products. And you'll be hearing what we call Cloud Suite soon, where the ERP system that is often centric to those clouds is only one element. And you'll hear a lot more about a suite in due course. So what do we have? Well, we talked about the whole concept of Cloud Suite. And this is that suite, okay? So there are several elements to it, and right at the lowest level, we'll build up from the bottom, I guess. AWS, we've already talked about their role. They are managing the infrastructure, the platform, security, all of that good stuff. That is AWS, that's their role. Sitting on top of that, we have what we call an operating system. It's Infor's operating system, or operating service, I should use the right term. And that is, in effect, all of the pieces of functionality, integration, all the things you heard in the earlier slide. It's the platform. It makes everything hang together. Then the next level up is the industry. And your industry you're clearly focused on is rental, of course. And in effect, what Infor will say is, hey, you know, we have an ERP system for every industry. Okay, so, and I say there are exceptions. They don't purport to have every industry covered, but you'll see, you know, should we get to meet again, they cover a lot of industries. And the concept of Infor is they don't want you to have a single ERP system that has to be finished by another body. So, for example, an Infor partner, perhaps. No, Infor's role and Infor's belief is that they are designing the software to go right to the lowest level for your industry, comes out of the box for your industry. And to facilitate that, they have many, many different ERP systems rather than one large ERP system that can be tailored, configured, and in effect finished perhaps by a partner on your behalf for your industry. Working that last step up, we've covered it already, the fact that this is cloud-based. It isn't only cloud-based, okay? So, you know, the system is available, be it on-premise, third-party hosted, or in the cloud. So you have all those choices. But overwhelmingly in 2022, most systems are being purchased in the cloud today. And that's what we call the Cloud Suite. We then have the ability of a network. Because we're inside that suite, this is all handled by Infor. There's really nothing for you to worry about. And the ability to run your business with perhaps IoT, it's so important for you guys, for example, to know where your equipment is. Some of you will have GPS locators. Some of you will be doing telematics into that equipment. You might be picking up, engines or vibrations or other things like that. So it's key that we're able to communicate with all of those third parties out there of your choice. You pick the product, you pick the server that you want to work with, the service provider, and we connect to it. Okay, and all of that is handled by Infor. Again, no worries to you. Second top is Burst or Analytics. Burst is the name of an a BI platform. And Infor bought Burst, which at the time 4 years ago was recognized as the world's best business intelligence tool. It's available at all levels. It's an enterprise business intelligence solution that stands on its own, and until Infor bought it, was sold on its own, of course. But now what's happened over the last 4 years, Infor have fully integrated it to all of their ERP systems. So now when you're in the cloud suite, as it's called, you get full access to Burst, and you get the full suite of products that are included in Burst, and it comes prepackaged, all with the cloud suite, with pre-built content for your industry and so on. And lastly, I would say this is a little early in its development, but nevertheless, it's starting to become spoken about. Artificial intelligence. Everybody has a name for these, right? I think IBM's called Watson and Infor is called Coleman. But artificial intelligence will be a thing today. I would say it's very embryonic and people are playing with it and trying to figure out where it's going to add value. But Infor are investing significantly in AI, and they have this solution also available in their cloud system. So one of the things we talked about earlier was making sure you've picked a software vendor who's at the leading edge of all the technologies. And I hope that slide demonstrates that is exactly what Infor is. Okay, we've already talked about, in effect, all the detail here that comes in this suite. We talked about AWS, all the ERP. At the beginning, we skipped it perhaps, and we talked about the ERP on the third tier. And you can see over on the left there, there are so many key parts to an ERP system, financials and HR and supply chain and planning, service management, quality management, all those things. It's not just about rental, of course, right? This is really about everything that makes up a business system. And I think that slide does show, that this is a classic ERP system. It's an enterprise resource planning system, as the initials suggest. So it comes as part of a complete system. You do not only get the rental functionality, of course. And then over on the right there on the same block, you talk about some optional extras that might be right for you as well. They're not built into the core product, so they become an optional extra. Okay, enterprise asset management for some significant pieces of equipment. Perhaps, I could pick something that runs a power station or an airport or something like that. That needs another level. So there actually are increased levels of capability available in the options side of the product as well. The Infor operating system, we talked about this. This is really the glue that holds all of those pieces together. So down the left and the right, you can see all the things really that I mentioned. Okay, so the user experience, it's a very visual tool. It's very consumer friendly, as we call it. It's sort of like going onto a consumer website. It's not like a clunky old ERP system with grids, and perhaps hopefully you're not on one of the green screens. I mean, they still exist, of course. But the idea today is to give you a friendly experience that encourages you and welcomes you. It's colorful. And there's a couple of screenshots there for you to have a look, of course. Collaboration, that's big today. And you can see on the right, there's a little example of that. We've got what we call a wall, for example, right? So I get invited to the groups, or I might create groups of my own interests. And you can see in that slide on the right, that's the financials group, the guys who talk about numbers, for example. And I could be a part of that group, and people might post. Think of posting. I post a problem. I post something that's interesting to me. I get to see that. I get to interact with it, of course. So it's a new way of collaborating. Today, we think predominantly of email. And if you're like me, you get 300 emails a day. Well, this is a different way of collaborating with each other. You can also follow business objects, right? So I could say, well, I want to follow a certain order or a certain piece of equipment, a certain contract. So again, this is all in detail to share with you in the later, but that's what we call collaboration. Extensibility, the next one. This tool really focuses on being able to take the software and extend it, right? That's what extensibility means. So you get the out-of-the-box software. It comes as Infor believes you should use, best practice, let's say. But that's not often the way you want to do business, right? You've got something secret. You've got a secret sauce there. Some things are unique to you, and you don't want to fit into an off-the-shelf ERP system. So the software has extensibility. It's not code. It's not code-based. It's graphics-based, and it allows you to extend the system and represent functionality or represent screens to users, extend the application to do other things that it doesn't do today. It allows you to perhaps take away all those spreadsheets that you've needed for many years that you can bring into the system now. So extensibility, very powerful. And when you actually amend or enhance or extend the system, you also don't run afoul of the upgrade program, because all of these tools sit outside of the upgrade program. So yes, you can manipulate the software, you can extend the software, and it doesn't affect your upgradability. Those upgrades will continue coming once a month, of course, and you take those, and they do not impact the standard Infor product. Bottom left, we've talked about security, and we've dwelled on that for some time. It's handled predominantly by AWS, and we won't really spend any more time there. AI at the top, again, we've covered. Really embryonic and trying to find its feet and its direction, but Infor are throwing money at AI to make sure that they are at the leading edge with the rest of the world. Process integration, there really is a great tool in the ERP system, in the Cloud Suite tool, that allows you to integrate with third parties. You can integrate with Infor's own suites of products and optional extras, or you can actually integrate with third-party tools out there. Some really common ones, for example, might be Salesforce for CRM, Concur for expense management, Shopify maybe for commercial portals. They're all available to be integrated. Some come out of the box and they're available. There's some of the very big names, and others are very easy to be integrated as well. Next one down there on the right is the data lake. Again, you have your ERP system. It has all the data you need to run your business, but it's very transactional. And people want that system to be fast. They want to access that system. They want to key in new contracts, check out equipment, service equipment, all the things you want to do as a rental company. You want that system to be very, very fast and very responsive. Well, the way Data Lake works is every time you create a transaction in the software, it pushes it off to, let's call it an older name for Data Lake is a data warehouse. It's another server somewhere else with all of your data in it. And now you can use your business intelligence tools, of course, to analyze that data, run your business, run your management reports, run your dashboards, all the things you need to understand your business and move your business to the next level. But instead of running those reports and dashboards on the transactional database where your ERP users are each day, every day, and potentially slow you down, well, now you actually push all those inquiries into that other server out there that's called Data Lake. So very powerful, very convenient. And again, it's an infrastructure you don't need to worry about. Infor look after all of that. They look at the pushing of the data from your transactional system to that data lake. And then also they provide the tools and the BI tools, which we call Burst, if you remember, to be able to integrate and pull all that data into modern dashboards for you. And then lastly, on the right, is a full indexed document management. So if you need to attach documents, whether they come in from emails, from vendors, or anything, an AP invoice from a vendor or anything, a proof of delivery or somebody delivers product to your warehouse or so on, All of these documents today quite often are in paper format. You're putting them in filing cabinets. They're difficult. They cost money to do all of that, of course. You've got to pay your people. And the system is fully indexed so that when documents either arrive electronically, if they come perhaps in an email to you, it's just a drag and drop. You copy them into the ERP system and they get cross-referenced. Or you can maybe scan them, if they do come to you in paper form. Anything is possible, but there is a fully indexed document management system as part of the Infor OS as well. So I think you could see there is a lot to the Infor operating service. This is a quick picture of just some dynamics, right? So this is talking about, there's a quote up there from Gartner, those of you who know Gartner, and it's all about digital transformation and having too much data. And yes, I think we all have a lot of data, of course, but it's really having the tool to be able to pull that together, create trending, create graphs. Most people don't like to absorb numbers in number format, right? So this is really all about making it in a more digestible fashion that management can absorb, see trends, and then take actions, of course. So this is really more about BI and Burst, of course. So having talked about Infor in general and Infor's cloud suite and all of the great things that come if you choose to go into a cloud environment, we're now getting a little deeper and we're going to go into Cloud Suite Industrial, or SyteLine as it's often called. And we're going to spend the rest of the time talking about that ERP system. So first of all, this is really what Infor are suggesting. They want a different ERP system. That really resonates with what I said earlier. We don't want the same ERP system going into United Rentals or Herc Rentals or somebody like that to the same ERP system that is going into a regional rental company that might have 1 to 5 branches in a state or a town, or maybe even a single branch, single site company. It doesn't make sense. You can almost guarantee those systems don't work in the opposite environment. So Infor have come up with 2 ERP systems for rental. The one on the left is for very, very large organizations, like I just mentioned. And it's called, the ERP system inside the Cloud Suite is called M3. And it belongs to a cloud suite called Cloud Suite Equipment Rental. Those who exist in what we call Tier 2 on the right, that's the small, medium-sized business, anything from, say, maybe as low as $5 million a year, all the way up to about $1 billion is where. That's a big stretch. I know that, of course, that really does stretch a lot of different businesses, but that's where that product fits. And the ERP inside of the Cloud Suite is called SyteLine, and that's what we'll be focusing on. And we'll be talking about a few things there. Yes, we'll be focusing predominantly on the rental side, but it also covers field service, which is essential to the rental industry, and potentially the fact that this equipment is taking place in the construction field. We also have the ability to handle the construction industry with this product as well. Okay, so as it mentions, this is an extension pack. Okay, so SyteLine's been around for about 36 years now. It's very mature, it's very deep, and it's very rich. Okay, now it's Infor have modernized it over that time. They've changed databases, they've changed programming languages, they've changed user interfaces, and it's all super modern. Okay, but the real strength of the product is it has been around for 30 plus years. And what Infor have said is, hey, we're just going to take all of the advantages of that ERP system, the financials and the inventory management and the CRM and all the things we heard about before, and we're going to create the last mile functionality, if you remember that phrase from earlier in the presentation, create the last mile functionality for these verticals, okay? Equipment rental, advanced field service, and construction. And it really isn't that big of a challenge for Infor to do that because everything else is already there. It's already 30 plus years in the marketplace, thousands of customers using it, works on premise, works in the cloud. So this really wasn't too stretch of an Infor for Infor. a bunch of customers that we have there who are using the product. And really, what's this about in terms of the sectors? Well, as the first slide said there, this is really about equipment rental. Infor are not pushing this at party rental. That's really not where Infor see their strengths. They see the complexity of equipment that will reach deep into the requirements of the software. So it's equipment rental. The advanced field service side, and that's all your technicians coming in and out and repairing equipment, delivering equipment, installing equipment, and all the good pieces that go with that. And then construction, the ability to manage large projects, all the billing requirements of that, American Institute of Architects and so on. So all of those are covered in this release. What are the real reasons? And that's a long list. And for today's presentation, I'll leave it up there for a second while you read all of that, of course. But there's probably a few things on there that resonate with you all. Some are looking to reduce costs. Some are looking to increase flexibility. Some are looking to improve equipment utilization. There'll be something, or maybe all of them. Maybe all of those apply to you, and you need all of those benefits in your business. But nevertheless, it's a common list that people will be looking for in the industry. According to the ARA, and we're an ARA member, of course, so we have access to the ARA's data. And this is, in effect, the top 26 requested features, of which we put a few on there. We put the top 10, 15 on there, of course, for you. And we can tell you that we are lining ourselves up with this. So good news is before we looked at this list a while back, we'd already hit, I think, 22 of the 26. I forget the exact number. So we really didn't need the ARA requested features functionality that was published recently. And we did very well, trying to, we understood the marketplace. We knew what customers wanted, and we already designed in pretty much everything that you see on the ARA requested technology. We have all the top ones, of course. And now we're going to pursue the others that we're missing. And we will fill that 26 list of requirements really quickly, certainly by the end of 2023. And the list goes on. And if you're in the ARA, which I would imagine most will be, if not all, you've probably seen this publicized by the ARA themselves. So again, you'll be very familiar with. What are we trying to do with the product? Well, we want to have real-time data, right? We don't want batch processing. Those are the old systems. When something happens, we want to know about it immediately. And that includes mobile devices in the field. Okay, so we do have a full mobile solution. It's based on Apple and Android's technology, so it's not a website, right? It works anywhere. You don't need cellular coverage. So it really doesn't matter where you are, but that's really the key, is we want the transaction to be conducted where you are, whether you're in the field and you're taking a signature to deliver a piece of equipment, or you're back in the office, or you're on the beach. It really doesn't matter where you are. We want you to have real-time data. There's no batch processing in any of Infor's software. Everything's real-time. And in effect, we want it to be easy for you should you be on either the acquisition trail or just expanding, organically. The real key to this is because it's in the cloud. This is so easy for you guys to just spin up another company, put another branch on, and off you go. There's really no hardware, infrastructure, networking to think about. It's all just going to be there with what is in effect for you guys in Elastic Cloud. Speed to market, time to value. We don't want you in a 12, 18, 24-month implementation like we used to. We want you to be getting the value from the software very quickly. So Infor are very much about templates, training, online training. It's called Campus. Okay, it's an online training tool. Yes, you need consultants, of course, but nevertheless, the idea is to get you implemented in a timeline that gives you rapid value. And we target, 60, 90 days for those who have an appetite to go that quickly to get some early functionality. You wouldn't have the whole system functionality in such a time, but you could be taking some of the low-hanging fruit in that sort of, that sort of window of 60 to 90 days. And obviously, you don't have all of that infrastructure that we mentioned before. You're not buying the servers. You're not paying, very expensive software and then paying annual maintenance. So it's all about getting the value as quickly as possible. And then the third one, you don't want to be paying for hardware, right? That's just, AWS have enough of that. We don't need you guys to worry about that. And typically those staff members that have traditionally been in, an IT department, let's call it, we can move those guys around the business and get much more benefit from them and leave all of that to Infor and AWS. And then on the right, best in class, I talked about that, 2,000 people at Amazon worrying about security. That's all they do. They turn up every day and that's all they think about is security. Something most small and medium enterprises just clearly can't match. And then all the monitoring, they have their server farms, they have zones, they have fallback zones, they have 5, let's call them data centers around the United States and over 100 across the world. So again, it's a structure, an infrastructure that really the rest can't match, and that's where you want to be. Well, we've mentioned Infor really is industry focused, right? It's not one ERP system. As you saw just in the rental vertical there, there's 2 ERP systems just in the rental side, and then they look after manufacturing and hospitality and hospitals and local government. The list goes on. But Infor's strategy is very much about delivering the last mile functionality for the industry in question. Moving across the top, innovation, we're really just recapping here as the last slide. It's about multi-tenant cloud. Lots of people offer single tenant cloud. Be careful with that one. Single tenant just means a server that has been purchased on your behalf, that is being managed for you. The common phrase is hosting, for example, and that's never cost effective. As Infor come along every month, remember, 12 times a year, they enhance the software, they push out those updates. A multi-tenant means there are many customers on one server. And in effect, Infor will upgrade the server once, and all of the customers working on that server will get the latest software. So it's very cost effective. It allows those costs to be passed to you in reduced service charges, of course. So be careful if somebody claims their cloud, make sure it's multi-tenant cloud and not single-tenant cloud. Collaboration, again, we've talked about a lot of ways of collaborating with the social tools in there, the posts, the following, takes you away from more traditional email environment. Faster time to value, again, we spend time there, this is cloud-based. We have all of the online tools, the campus tools, ways of getting committed in your own time. You might be busy 9 to 5. You might not be able to take consultant-led courses all the time. You might be available on a weekend. You might be available after 9 o'clock when you put the kids to bed. All of this is online. And another phrase that's on there is an implementation accelerator. That is also a tool Infor offer that is online, of course. And you can digest that material at your leisure because it's available at any time whenever you seek to take those trainings and learnings. Bottom one in the middle there is a complete suite. We spent a lot of time at the beginning talking about the Infor operating system. This is not just an ERP system. This is a fully connected suite, collaboration, document management, all of the things, extensibility, all of the things we saw there really it's a lot more than an ERP system. And when you come into the cloud, you get all the benefits of business intelligence, data lake, the ability to store your data elsewhere. It really is a complete suite that's completely scalable. Should you have, I hope everybody's growing and expanding and enjoying the fruits of great management. This really will handle all of your requirements, whether you're small today and growing to mid-size growing to large, or large to incredibly large. AWS and its scalability will be able to handle anything you're looking for. And then at the right there, again, I mentioned the UI is crucial. We want to make people want to turn the system on. It needs to feel and look like a website. It needs to be very understandable, right? It almost needs to be intuitive. You look at it, you see familiar screens, they're friendly, and you don't need a green screen or a bunch of blocks, or you don't need to open 10 screens to do the most basic things. Infor are really focusing on what they call the user experience. They do a lot of panels. They bring users in and they get opinions. They don't sit in an ivory tower. So they're out there trying to find out how to enhance the user experience. And they're always doing it many times a year, seeking the opinions of current customers, complete strangers, and the people who look after that user experience. This might surprise you, but they're not from the IT industry. There's a group of people, a body in Infor called Hook and Loop, and they are from the design industry predominantly. They're not from IT specifically. So perhaps they've designed clothing or pottery or something like that. They've worked in a magazine, something like that. And they really do care about the user experience and making sure people enjoy it. And that's worth more than you might think. So really, that's my final slide. I hope you enjoyed it. And this is the contact that you can all reach out to. And we'll obviously be at the ARA show, February 13th to 15th. And we look forward to seeing you there.